He was the face of Hong Kong's most dangerous criminals, the calm voice behind the chaos, and the man whose silence spoke louder than any scandal. Simon Yam built a career playing killers, cops, and kings of the underworld, yet no one ever truly knew where the character ended and the man began. With rumors of Triad ties, shocking tabloid whispers, and a near-fatal stabbing caught on camera, his life has been anything but ordinary. This is the untold story of the actor who turned mystery into power. Subscribe to Criminal Tracks for more deep dives into fame, fear, and everything in between. Simon Yam's early years were far from glamorous. Born in British Hong Kong in 1955, he was raised in a city still under colonial rule, surrounded by the grit and ambition that would later define the characters he portrayed. His father worked as a police officer, a symbol of law and structure, but young Simon was drawn to something else entirely. While others around him pursued stable professions, Yam was captivated by storytelling and visuals. He began modeling in the 1970s, not just locally, but on an international scale. He became one of the first Hong Kong men to sign with a foreign modeling agency, a bold move in an era when Asian male beauty was barely recognized outside the continent. This early break wasn't just a personal victory, it was a cultural one, pushing boundaries in an industry that had long excluded faces like his. But modeling was never the endgame. The camera may have loved his face, but Simon Yam wanted more than static poses. He transitioned to acting through TVB, the powerhouse television station that dominated Hong Kong's entertainment scene. In the late 1970s and early 1980s, he started appearing in TV dramas. These roles were modest at first, supporting characters, romantic interests, sidekicks. But they gave him a foothold in the industry. He learned to carry scenes, to own silence, and to use his intensity not just as a look, but as a tool of performance. He was patient, even when the industry tried to pigeonhole him into generic romantic leads or forgettable background characters. Everything changed when he made the leap to cinema. By the late 1980s, Yam began diving into film roles that allowed him to explore the darker sides of humanity. He became a mainstay in Hong Kong's Category 3 film wave, movies rated for mature audiences due to their graphic violence, sexual content, or taboo subjects. These weren't art house dramas or mainstream blockbusters. They were raw, edgy, and controversial. Yam didn't shy away. Instead, he leaned into the chaos. In Dr. Lamb, 1992, he portrayed a serial killer in a chilling performance that blurred the line between horror and psychological drama. In Naked Killer the same year, he played a police officer caught in a whirlpool of lust and danger. And in Full Contact, also released in 1992, he became the ultimate cinematic rebel, a stylish villain with a twisted code of honor. The early 1990s were arguably Simon Yam's breakthrough era. He wasn't just appearing in films, he was commanding them. He had an unmistakable screen presence, a mix of charm and menace that made him magnetic to watch. But the very traits that brought him fame also began to define him in ways that weren't entirely flattering. Audiences and critics alike started typecasting him. No matter how nuanced his performances were, Yam was becoming known as the gangster guy, the actor who always seemed to be on the wrong side of the law on screen. The irony was palpable. After all, he was the son of a police officer, raised in a household that valued order and authority. Yet in cinema, he became a symbol of lawlessness and danger. Behind the scenes, Yam was strategic. He understood that Hong Kong cinema in the 1990s was entering a golden but chaotic age. Triad influence in the industry was an open secret. Financing often came from dubious sources, and scripts were sometimes rushed into production just to keep certain people happy. In this environment, being typecast wasn't necessarily a curse. It was a form of survival. If audiences wanted gangsters, he would give them the most complex, seductive criminals they'd ever seen. Still, Yam didn't completely surrender to the mold. He occasionally took on roles that broke the pattern. He portrayed tormented lovers, upright cops, and even comic figures. but the shadow of his earlier work always lingered. He knew how to play the devil too well. By the mid-1990s, he was both a bankable star and a controversial figure. His films were hits at the box office, but they also stirred debates about censorship, morality, and the impact of cinema on society. Were these violent, sexually charged movies glorifying the underworld? Or were they a reflection of a society that didn't shy away from its darker instincts? For Yam, the answer didn't seem to matter. He wasn't trying to be a moral compass. He was building a career that could weather any storm, rooted in versatility and fearlessness. He never apologized for the roles he took, nor did he chase validation from critics who found his work too provocative. He let the performances speak for themselves. And the audience? They kept watching. Even as other stars faded, Simon Yam remained relevant. His career in the 1990s was a tightrope walk between art and exploitation, prestige and pulp. But he walked it with precision. He knew how to modulate his image. Never too clean, never too corrupt. Always a little mysterious, always just out of reach. This calculated ambiguity would become one of his greatest assets in the decades to come. By the end of the 1990s, Simon Yam had become a fixture in Hong Kong cinema, not just for what he represented, but for what he resisted. He wasn't a classically trained actor. He wasn't a martial arts icon. He didn't ride into fame on the back of a single franchise. Instead, he carved out a space by daring to go where others wouldn't, into roles that were dangerous, controversial, and emotionally charged. His characters bled, betrayed, murdered, and mourned. And somehow, he made them human. This was the foundation of a career that would survive scandals, suspicions, and even bloodshed. But in the beginning, it all came down to this: a young man from a disciplined family who chose chaos and became a star because of it. As the 2000s began, Simon Yam had already cemented his place as one of Hong Kong cinema's most recognizable faces. But he wasn't just coasting on fame, he was doubling down. While many of his peers transitioned into safer, mainstream roles or faded quietly into television, Yam dove headfirst into some of the most hard-hitting crime dramas of the decade. His performance in PTU showcased his quiet intensity as a cop navigating the neon-lit streets of a city on the brink. In Election, he played a ruthless Triad boss with chilling calm, and in SPL, he delivered a layered performance alongside martial arts giants like Donnie Yen and Sammo Hung. These films weren't just commercial hits. They defined the gritty realism of post-handover Hong Kong cinema, where the line between justice and corruption blurred beyond recognition. But while his screen presence was undeniable, Yam's off-screen image became increasingly complicated. Rumors began swirling about the real-life connections between actors and the very triads they portrayed on screen. It didn't help that several of Yam's collaborators had long-standing whispers of organized crime ties. Some journalists speculated that Yam's sustained popularity and consistent casting in violent roles were no coincidence. His ability to glide effortlessly through the underworld on screen began to raise uncomfortable questions. Was it just acting, or was there something more? Although no formal charges or concrete evidence ever surfaced linking Simon Yam to any illegal activity, the silence surrounding these allegations was deafening. Yam never addressed them publicly. He gave no interviews to clarify his stance, issued no statements to deny the claims. This non-response only fueled the fire. To his critics, his silence looked like guilt. To his fans, it was just Simon being Simon, mysterious, calculated, above the noise. Either way, it added a new layer to his brand. The man who knew too much to speak. Then came the 2008 tax investigation, an event that sent shockwaves through Hong Kong's entertainment world. Authorities launched a massive probe into celebrity tax practices, and several big names were caught in the dragnet. While Simon Yam was never charged with any crime, leaked documents revealed his name among those being scrutinized. For a public that had begun to associate him with shadowy characters, this was too juicy to ignore. The headlines were damning, even if the facts weren't. Once again, Yam chose silence. He didn't hold a press conference or sue for defamation. He simply moved on, continuing to act and produce, as if the scandal had never happened. Ironically, it was this strategy, never reacting, never explaining, that kept him afloat. In an industry where a single misstep can tank a career, Yam's refusal to engage with controversy turned him into an enigma. People projected their fears, fantasies, and frustrations onto him, but he never gave them a clear target. He remained unknowable, and in doing so, he stayed relevant. His personal life, however, wasn't quite as bulletproof. Simon Yam's marriage to supermodel Chi-Chi was often held up as a rare example of stability in the chaotic world of celebrity relationships. The couple appeared in public together, supported each other's careers, and raised a daughter far from the spotlight. But by 2012, whispers began to circulate in gossip columns across Hong Kong and mainland China. Allegations of infidelity surfaced, with some tabloids claiming Yam had fathered a child outside the marriage. Other stories suggested long separations, quiet arguments behind closed doors, and secret meetings with unnamed women. None of these claims were ever substantiated, and true to form, Simon Yam said nothing, neither confirming nor denying. The public was left to guess whether he was a devoted husband unfairly smeared or a skilled actor hiding a second life. Then came the moment that would shake his career in a very real, very physical way. In July 2019, while attending a promotional event in Zhongshan, China, Simon Yam was attacked on stage by a man with a knife. The assailant, later revealed to be mentally unstable, rushed Yam during a meet and greet and stabbed him in the stomach and hand before being subdued. The footage spread like wildfire, fans screaming, security rushing in, blood on Yam's shirt. For a moment, the line between actor and victim blurred in the most horrifying way. This was no movie. This was real. Simon Yam survived the attack, undergoing emergency surgery and spending time recovering in a local hospital. His injuries were serious but not life-threatening. When he emerged days later to speak briefly with reporters, he was composed, even gracious. He thanked the public for their concern and praised the doctors who treated him. But again, he offered no deeper reflection, no insight into what the attack meant for him personally. He simply returned to work with the same stoic face that had made him famous. Still, something had shifted. The stabbing wasn't just a physical wound. It was a symbolic one. For a man who had spent decades playing killers, cops, and criminals, the reality of violence had finally come home. In the wake of the attack, discussions reignited about the risks of celebrity life in China, especially in an era when fame could attract unstable admirers and dangerous fanatics. Some speculated that Yam's roles in violent films may have made him a target. Others wondered if there was a deeper motive behind the assault. Once again, the lack of clear answers only deepened the mystery. As the 2010s came to a close, Simon Yam found himself in a strange position. He was no longer just an actor or a sex symbol or a scandal magnet. He was a survivor, and that status carried with it a new kind of respect. No longer just a star of the silver screen, he had become a symbol of endurance, both professionally and physically. While others in the industry faded away or crashed under the weight of their controversies, Yam kept going. He didn't apologize. He didn't confess. He just kept acting. But beneath the resilience was a darker truth. For years, Yam had walked a tightrope between fame and suspicion, playing characters who mirrored the very rumors that surrounded him. With every new film, he invited audiences to ask the same question: where does the actor end and the character begin? And by refusing to answer, he made himself unforgettable. In the years following the 2019 stabbing, Simon Yam didn't slow down. If anything, he became more selective, more deliberate. Now in his 60s, he wasn't chasing roles. Roles were chasing him. But there was a noticeable shift. The characters he played were no longer just gangsters or corrupt cops. They were older, wiser, burdened. they wrestled with legacy, regret, and mortality. It was as if Yam, once the embodiment of dangerous youth and seductive villainy, had become something more reflective, perhaps even repentant. Whether intentional or not, his screen presence now carried a ghostly quality. Every word, every glance hinted at a past that could never fully be escaped. But while his performances matured, public perception of Yam remained divided. In the wake of Hong Kong's political unrest and the entertainment industry's evolving landscape, many began to reassess the legacies of older stars. Some critics argued that actors like Yam, who rose to prominence during the Triad-laced heyday of 80s and 90s cinema, had helped glamorize organized crime. Films like Election and PTU were hailed for their realism and gritty storytelling, but they also mythologized Triad culture in ways that blurred fiction and reality for an entire generation. Yam's consistent refusal to address his early filmography's impact, or the long-standing rumors about Triad influence in Hong Kong's film industry, became harder to defend. When younger stars began speaking out about cleaning up the industry, Yam remained silent. Was it loyalty? Was it fear? Or was it simply a strategy? Silence had always served him well. He never fed scandals. He never fought them. He just kept moving. But in the new era, one dominated by transparency, social media, and accountability, his silence began to feel outdated. At the same time, his quiet dignity continued to command respect. When younger actors were caught in messy divorces, cheating scandals, or public breakdowns, Yam stood as a model of discipline. His marriage, though previously rumored to be strained, appeared intact. His daughter, largely kept out of the public eye, reportedly thrived. He didn't post online. He didn't overshare. He stayed in his lane, a relic of an era where mystique was currency. Yet the weight of his legacy is a complicated thing. On one hand, Simon Yam is undoubtedly a pillar of Hong Kong cinema. His body of work spans over 4 decades, crossing genres and pushing boundaries. He's starred in over 200 films, won numerous awards, and worked with virtually every major director in the region. His commitment to craft is unquestionable. On the other hand, he is also a symbol of everything the industry refuses to talk about: the blurred lines between art and underworld, between performance and propaganda. In some ways, that ambiguity is the point. Yam has always operated in the gray. His characters rarely fit into neat moral categories. They kill with conviction, but they love with intensity. They lie, cheat, and betray, but they also protect, mourn, and endure. And perhaps that's the most honest portrayal of human nature one could ask for. There is also the matter of perception. To the Western world, Simon Yam may appear as a charismatic Asian actor with a flair for action, but to the local audience, to those who grew up watching him navigate the volatile post-handover years of Hong Kong cinema, he represents something deeper. He's a mirror, a reminder of the golden age of film, tainted by censorship, triads, and fading autonomy. A face that brings nostalgia, but also unease. Looking at his recent interviews, rare as they are, it becomes clear that Yam sees his career as a marathon. He often speaks about resilience, longevity, and the importance of adapting to change. He doesn't dwell on past controversies. When asked about the attack in 2019, he simply says he was lucky. When asked about retirement, he says he'll keep acting as long as someone offers him a role. It's a quiet philosophy, but a revealing one. He sees himself not as a provocateur, but as a survivor. Not a star burning bright and fast, but a steady light that refuses to go out. Still, some questions remain unanswered. Why did he never confront the tabloid rumors? Why did he never distance himself from the filmmakers and financiers known to have underworld connections? Was it fear, strategy, or something else entirely? And perhaps more hauntingly, has he built his legacy on stories that were dangerously close to reality? Simon Yam's life is a paradox. He is both beloved and feared, revered and scrutinized. His career is a masterclass in sustained fame. but also a study in omission. He rose in a time when actors didn't have to explain themselves, and he has refused to evolve with an industry that now demands it. But maybe that's why he remains so compelling. In a world that overexposes every celebrity moment, Simon Yam is a black box, locked, guarded, and pulsing with mystery. And mystery, after all, is what made him famous in the first place. Simon Yam never gave explanations. He never defended, denied, or confessed. And perhaps that's why he's still standing, unbroken, unreadable, and unforgettable. His story isn't just about acting, it's about survival, silence, and the shadows that follow success. In a world where fame can devour those who chase it too fast, Yam walked a razor's edge and lived to tell the tale, without ever really telling it. If you're drawn to the secrets behind the screen and the scandals fame refuses to erase, don't miss what's coming next. Subscribe to Criminal Tracks. The truth is never where you expect it to be.